is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Let's go! Well, snips and steals and puppy dog tails and my line on the moon. Girl, you're really jamming and conking and no bone. Ooh, your body slamming, you shape just like a horse. Ooh, your boom boom bombing, it kicking like a horse. Girl, I want to...
Good yawning this morning. Good yawning and welcome back to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, your station for fresh news, smart talk all day. It is Tuesday, the 15th of October, 2024, and we survived the long holiday weekend. I got to say good morning to my producer. Good morning, producer, and thank you for playing that song. Man, you give me a memory flashback just now. I remember being a young person in the Bahamas and hearing that song for the first, second, and third time and thinking, ooh, this song is like risque. This song is adult. Ooh. And I liked it. It's a sweet song, and the older I get, the better it gets because I appreciate different parts and elements of the song. Good morning. Thank you again, producer. We've got lots to talk about today. Let me tell you what stories I have on deck. National honors. Pride Bahamas Human Rights March. Inquiry into Dorian handling would not be good use, PM says. And I got a question here. Has vendor and local access to Cable Beach been closed? We're going to be looking through today's papers. I'm not quite sure where to start, but let's start with the national honors. A couple of questions to ask the audience while we're talking about this. What qualifies a national hero? What disqualifies a national hero? But congratulations to all of the people whose contribution to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas has been recognized this National Honors Cycle and on this National Heroes Day 2024. Among those numbers are plenty people I know. I'm looking at the paper right now, and I'm looking at Mr. Reg Eldon. This morning, when I opened my phone, I saw a beautiful picture of Miss Cheryl Carey. We know that sweet Emily received an honor this year. My good Uncle Patrick Bailey received an honor this year posthumously, and Mrs. Leela Greene, of which I am a mini-me, received a national honor yesterday. Now, when I say a mini-me, I'm not suggesting that I am a carbon copy of Miss Greene. I am not suggesting that I have achieved. I am not suggesting that I am the woman that Mrs. Leela Greene is. Not at all. I'm only saying that I wear her face and I carry her voice. And with that comes great responsibility. I could only wish, I could only hope to have achieved, to achieve what Mrs. Leela Greene has achieved. And I can only pray that my peers make the contributions to the country that create an environment in which I can also excel. For none of these achievements were experienced or gained or made in isolation. I just want to say about Miss Cheryl Carey and why I think, among other things, this is just one element of why she is deserving of this national honor. Mrs. Cheryl Carey, I think when I was at COB in 1992, 93, 94, that era, Ms. Carey was a guidance counselor, and she operated like a guidance counselor, and she created a safe space in her office. That's the first time I heard the words safe space. And for students, right, and lecturers, but one of the things in particular that you learned in that environment was about safe and healthy interactions with other people. Safe touch and healthy touch. And in that space, Ms. Carey made it possible for in particular, new college students, right, to begin to understand the difference between just any old touch and health and safe touch. The people need hugs and physical intimacy for healthy human development. Babies need it. That's why we talk about and advocate for paternity leave and maternity leave, because it's inherent that the mother spends this initial time with the newborn baby, but it's also important that fathers have the opportunity to develop a relationship with their baby through skin-to-skin touch, right? Because touch is crucially and vitally important in the lives of humans. And it's in that space that I watched a lot of young men and women dealing with trauma, domestic violence in the household, early sexual initiation, molestation, to watch young people come into that space and learn about healthy touch and how to create healthy intimacy, platonic intimacy among friends. And if that is the only reason why Ms. Cheryl Carey deserves a national honor, it is sufficient. But also, I watched Ms. Cheryl Carey punch up like 7,485 mosquitoes at summer camp one year. A national hero indeed. Okay, let's get going on to some more news stories. Today's Tribune is littered with stories, and I got a text off the bat. So let's start with this one, and then we'll move on to Hurricane Dorian. Let me read the text, guys. It's long. It says, "Dear Erin, I'm both perplexed and disturbed that LGBTQ would march among our impressionable youth during the Youth March. Who were you all trying to convert? What message was your group trying to send to the youth? Dear Texter, the Pride Bahamas Human Rights March had nothing to do with the Youth March. We did not, N-O-T, we did not march with the Youth March. In fact, our route was completely and totally separate from the Youth March. And while I was speaking with organizers, because I'm not an organizer, I wasn't an organizer, I did not organize the march, I was not a part of organizing Pride Bahamas. When I spoke to the organizers about the route selected, one of the things I considered was this route did not interact with or interfere with in any way the National Youth March. And dear Texter, I would hope that you are not one of these people on social media spreading misinformation, creating an unsafe environment for people who are already vulnerable in their own community. I would hate to think that you were doing that. See, because then you would be the thing that you accuse us of being. And that, my friend, is problematic. So let's read through the article, and then I got a text there saying, let's touch on this Sachs story as well. So let's go today's Tribune. First Gay Pride March safely held, but participants faced onlookers' jeers. The first Gay Pride March in the Bahamas was held safely on Friday, though participants faced jeers and quotes of scripture verses from some onlookers, according to Alexis DeMarco, president of Rebirth of Pride Bahamas. She said the goal of the march, which started at the University of the Bahamas' entrance, the University of the Bahamas was not involved in the march. We launched the march from outside UB campus. She said the goal of the University of the Bahamas' entrance and ended at Hillside House on Blue Hill Road was to increase the visibility of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender and intersex communities in the Bahamas. Quote, it went very smoothly with the assistance of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, who showed up in good numbers to ensure that the participants were protected, close quotes. She said, adding that there were 36 participants. Quote, yes, we had persons who were jeering, persons who were quoting religious scriptures. That was an unfortunate part of it, but we persisted and we marched on, close quotes. Mr. Marco said participants also handed out flyers for missing American Taylor Casey, 42, a transgender woman who vanished while attending a retreat in June. She said the primary goal of the march was to increase visibility for the LGBTQ plus community in the Bahamas, highlighting that there are organizations actively working to support them. She said the visibility is essential for people to recognize that there are allies and mechanisms in place to help those facing violence, stigma, or discrimination. She said it took 5 years of planning for the event to be held, during which time the LGBTI community has made meaningful strides. Quote, the reason it took so long is that we had on what pride is and what pride looked like to us as Bahamian citizens. Not what pride looks like to those in America, those in the UK, but our own Caribbean or our own Bahamian pride, close quote, she said. She said there has been a decline in targeted violence against members of the LGBTI community and a decrease in homeless LGBTI youth. Quote, there is a decrease as it relates to parents throwing their children out in the streets because they are perceived or are known to be LGBTI. So we've seen that decrease in homelessness as reported in our community. Close quotes, she said. I want to start by thanking the Royal Bahamas Police Force. Thanking them tremendously. Not because I didn't expect them to not do their job. I expect the Royal Bahamas Police Force to do their job, as they do as professionals. I am thankful. I am grateful. I want to acknowledge that this type of assignment in the police force can be like trepidatious, right? Because as a community officer, your job is to engage the community, be a part of the community, be in relationship with community members. And so officers who are assigned to these types of tasks may face tremendous social pressure and pushback about this. But I appreciate the community members who understood that police officers have to put their personal feelings in a box and shut it down and fulfill their professional obligations, right? And so to those community members that understand that and didn't put pressure on officers that they are familiar with, we say thank you. I also want to acknowledge a thing that one of the pushbacks I've heard or seen on social media is like, how these gay people get a march. The government must help them do a march. And this is a perfect opportunity to talk about privilege and perception of privilege. Because as we march UB Poinciana Drive, Blue Hill Road, straight to Hillside House, as we march through those communities, it was important to recognize that our presence in those communities could be and may be perceived as a threat, like we are occupying their community with thoughts and ideas that they are opposed to. Right? So it was important for me to acknowledge and share with the participants that we should be constantly aware of this as we are marching, that the people in these communities may feel more impoverished or in their own communities than we do in our communities and in the country. And the visual, right? The perception that how did homosexuals in a country that is opposed to homosexuality, how could they get a march? How could they get permission to take to the streets? And here I am living with real social issues like economic rights issues, land and housing rights issues, access to water rights issues, labor and employment rights issues, community and transportation rights issues. Like, you know, my community is filled with walk-in people who walk and catch bus to work. But you also know that there are not sufficient buses on the routes that service my community to ensure that everyone could get to work on time. That's a rights issue, right? And so it's always important to remember when you are demonstrating, protesting, occupying space, to be aware of your relationship with the people who live in that space. Those are the spaces in which we find solidarity. This march may inspire or show young people that they too have the capacity to organize and march, protest, demonstrate, advocate, and lobby for issues that are of concern for them. And so to the people on the route who were accommodating, nobody lunged at us, attempted or looked like they were coming to attack us. People, I think, understood the purpose of a demonstration of this nature, whether they disagreed with what they perceived to be the core issues. It was a human rights march held by the LGBT community in the midst of their Pride Week. And once again, I want to say thank you to the Royal Bahamas Police Force that professionally and sensitively guided us on our parade route, and to the community members who accommodated us in their space as we demonstrated not just our visibility to the country and to other members of our community, but hopefully they understand that we were demonstrating our willingness to be a part of the broader community and to advocate for and on behalf of Bahamians that are facing similar and other human rights issues. And that's it. So, dear Texter, this march had nothing to do with the Youth March. It was in no way affiliated, and it in no way interfered with, intersected, or interacted with the National Youth March. From the bottom of my heart, to not perpetuate that message and to, refrain from engaging in any gossiping, rumor mongering, slandering, spreading of false messages, for you may create a more dangerous environment for vulnerable people. All right, we're going to move on to the next story. Texter, producer, I got a text here that say, Greene, you got to play that song again before the show ends. Here's another text. Why is SAC being so tight-lipped about the security threat on campus? Let us find that story today. Today's Guardian. SAC calls in RBPF after campus safety threat. St. Augustine's College has taken, quote, immediate steps, close quotes, to address a safety threat reported over the weekend involving the school's campus, students, and staff, according to a statement from the school's principal, Marie C. Thompson. Quote, in response to the incident, SAC promptly notified the Royal Bahamas Police Force, which has since launched a full investigation, close quote. Quote, the school extends its appreciation to the RBPF for its swift response and continued support in ensuring the well-being of the SAC community, close quotes. Thompson emphasized the school's commitment to maintaining a secure and nurturing learning environment. Quote, the safety of our students, and we're going to page 13, the safety. Page 3 of our students and staff is our highest priority, close quote, she said, quote, we want to assure parents, guardians, and our school community that stringent security measures have been implemented. Quote, we look forward to welcoming students back to campus on Tuesday morning with full confidence in our enhanced safety protocols, close quotes. The statement said, St. Augustine's College upholds a zero-tolerance policy toward any form of violence, threats of violence, or disruptive behavior. Quote, the institution remains committed to its legacy of fostering a respectful and supportive environment and will take all necessary actions to uphold this standard, close quotes. It added, quote, St. Augustine's College thanks parents and the greater community for their support and cooperation as we work together to safeguard our campus, close quotes. The statement did not detail the specific safety threat. So the texter asked, why is SAC being so tight-lipped about the security threat on that campus? Well, texter, it may be that they surmise that the threat or any violence associated with the threat would be isolated to the school campus. That's our first presumption, right? That you don't feel that you are warranted or you are required to share the nature of the threat with the wider public, and you justify that because you believe that the threat is entirely isolated to the campus. See, because it have to be entirely isolated to the campus. I am thinking, is there a risk to community members, right? Producer, we could go to the phone line. Is there a risk to community members that warrants the community being aware of the nature of the threat so that they can then make the decisions that they need to make to protect themselves and their loved ones? Good morning, caller.
Yes, good morning, Miss Greene. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
On the plantation, Miss Mr. Nguyen.
No.
Yes, say good morning, Mr. Nguyen. Yeah, I just wanted to bring notice to something, or just for people to acknowledge something, even the Royal Bahamas Police Force. And so I want to debunk a statement, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, I am very saddened by this death threat, but St. Augustine's, et cetera. I don't know the nature of it, and I don't really, you know what I mean? But, and I don't want to discuss the impunity of the gay community. But what I do appreciate is that the gay people who showing people that they are gay, you know, in the city, there's a lot of guys who profiling like men, but they're not really men. You saw the video with the effeminate guys posing off as bad men. So when someone shows you they're gay, then that's okay because at least I know you're gay. But the wolf in sheep clothing is what bothers me. And what else bothers me, I want to debunk the statement about acknowledging their threats, right? I'm being threatened by police officers over and over. They've heard me on the radio. I've been to the complaint unit, which is a door and nothingness, but nothing has never been done and nobody comes to my aid. So the fact that they're saying that this is only a law for me and not for thee, that's all I'm saying. And so I'm wondering why is it that nobody has spoken about the Sonny Miller case, which released the officer in Auckland, who case is being adjudicated or has been, the prosecution has laid its case, I guess, with the plane load of contraband in Auckland in the night. But nobody, they have him as Sonny Miller, but he's an officer. But Sonny Miller suggested it's a civilian. So it's on page 6 and nobody's talking about it. So we need real conversations in order to acknowledge problems. I can't make changes by myself. And obviously I'm not the only man on the ship. But what I'm saying is I've been threatened over and over. I've said it on the radio. No senior officer, nobody has called me. And nobody has called me. I'd be almost choked to death, beaten, gunned by that. What I'm saying is you're not doing it within your entity. So you're not affording your own integrity. Bless her.
Thank you for that critique. 52. Okay, I'm noting that down, the Sonny Miller. I'm going to go look for that. Maybe we could put it on the table for our Wednesday show tomorrow. But, 52, you made me think of it. I write in a book on plantation pedagogy. Pedagogy of the plantation, I write in that. But now we'd have to be talking about murders and death threats. I mean, marches and death threats, you just put it together, right? Marches and death threats. Dear Bahamian public, I'm looking for a clip. Now, this is important to me because somebody shared with me a day after the Human Rights March that I marched on. I was a participant in the march. That a local media personality and state consultant, right, there's a clip, an excerpt from their show being circulated on social media where the individual is having a conversation about me, repeating the lyrics to the song Boom Bye Bye, and throwing gun fingers in the air. Did I say that this person was also a government, like a state consultant? Yes. I am looking for that clip. If anybody could send that clip to me or to somebody that you know that knows me so they could send it to me, really appreciate it. Okay, so a texter said, Miss Greene, text, I can paraphrase your text, okay? The texter say, thank God for community. He said, because if you wasn't from Fox Hill, I'd feel compelled to tell you that hell is hot. I paraphrase a good texter, cool. Thank God for community. Community is the thing. That's why community is so important. That's why we have ministries that concern themselves about community development, right? Because it is community. It is when we touch each other's hands, we shake, we dap, we hug, that we remember that people are more important than politics. People are real. Politics are a construct. And so we hold our opinions, and once we are not crossing a line about protecting perpetrators of violence, we find space in community for each other. But thank you, Tex. I appreciate that. So back to the question. SAC calls in RBPF after campus safety threat. Why is SAC being so tight-lipped? Like I say, we will presume that it has been determined that the threat is completely and totally isolated to the campus itself, right? That's why. We hope that this has been curtailed. It's been like isolated and inoculated. And if it hasn't, we hope that it will be done shortly. All right, another story today. Let's see, it's 10:36. Bishop criticizes PLP and FNM on Dorian failure. Bishop Simeon, before we go there, the numbers to call, 323-6232, 325-4316, 325-4259, 242-300-5720, toll free for Family Island listeners. In particular, the text line powered by BTC 422-GR96. That's 422-4796. Feel free to call, text, and join the conversation. We move to second story. Bishop criticizes PLP and FNM on Dorian failure. And then I would like, if we have enough time, to talk about this story. 21-year-old stabbed to death in Grand Bahama at weekend. Bishop criticizes PLP and FNM on Dorian failure. Bishop Simeon Hall, former president of the Bahamas Christian Council, criticized both the PLP and FNM for failing to address lingering questions about Hurricane Dorian. He also renewed his call for an official inquiry into the disaster just a week after Prime Minister Philip Davis dismissed the idea. As a note, I'm gonna not read the brave part. Just in case y'all are wondering, I'm not sure if I can read it ever again. I ain't reading it. Prime Minister Philip Davis dismissed the idea of a formal inquiry, saying it would be an inappropriate use of resources at this time. Mr. Davis claimed investigations would continue, quote, administratively, close quotes, to determine what happened and to gather recommendations on how to improve future responses. We're going to page 4. In a statement released yesterday, Bishop Hall called it a disgrace that successive governments have failed to provide closure to the families of Hurricane Dorian victims after 5 years. He said, quote, how a country pays reverence to its citizens who have passed, especially during an unprecedented event, reflects the quality that country attaches to the living who remain. Let me repeat that quote. How a country pays reverence to its citizens who have passed, especially during an unprecedented event, reflects the quality that country attaches to living who remain, close quotes. Quote, while the leadership of the Free National Movement was unable to match the crisis Hurricane Dorian caused in 2019, I, like many others, still expect the New Day Progressive Liberal Party government to provide reasonable and sufficient answers to the families of the dead, the missing, and those impacted by this devastating storm. We must help these people establish closure for their loved ones. Hurricane Dorian was an appropriate time for both political parties to unify the country, but our leaders missed that opportunity miserably. Both parties have contributed to our nation's remarkable progress throughout the years, but some members of both parties lack creativity and are out of their depth during national crises, close quotes. Last month marked the 5th anniversary of Hurricane Dorian's landfall in Abaco and Grand Bahama. The devastating Category 5 storm killed more than 70 people and left scores more homeless. Bishop Hall called on both parties to unite and establish a formal commission of inquiry to finally bring peace to the families of the dead. We often hear stories that persons who lived through that traumatic hurricane are still traumatized by the onset of rain and gusts of wind. We must help these people achieve some level of closure, close quotes, he said. Quote, some say a formal commission of inquiry may be too onerous and expensive, but some other official government-endorsed mechanism must be put in place. The families of those who died or remain missing are owed an official position from the government of the Bahamas. Comments from Bishop Hall on statements made by the Prime Minister and representatives from the OPM last week. I read briefly from these headlines. Inquiry into Dorian handling would not be good use of resources, PM says. Nassau Guardian, 10th of October. Though Prime Minister Philip Davis previously called for a commission of inquiry into the Minnis administration's handling of Hurricane Dorian, he said it is not the best, quote, I did not promise a commission of inquiry, close quote, said Davis. Quote, I mooted that one might be necessary as we took office and realized the other issues that impacted this country and its people. We thought it best to tackle those issues and attempt to, through administrative means, get to the bottom of what happened during that time in Hurricane Dorian. In 2020, Davis said the Minnis administration had, quote, botched up, close quotes, its handling of Dorian's aftermath, and the numbers regarding people still missing were, quote, all over the place, close quotes. His comments came amid confusion over the official number of missing people in the aftermath of the storm, which ravaged Abaco and Grand Bahama in 2019 and left at least 74 people dead. In June 2020, producer, we could prep the call. Caller, I'm coming to you in a second. In June 2020, Marvin Dames, the Minister of National Security at the time, said 279 people were listed as missing after Dorian. Just weeks earlier, then Assistant Solomon Cash reported that only 33 people were still listed as missing. In response to the significant disparity, Davis, who was leader of the opposition, called on the government to launch a commission of inquiry into events surrounding Hurricane Dorian. Caller, 1 second. Quote, I think we need an inquiry that is wider than this mandate as to what preparation was made in the pre-hurricane, what happened during the hurricane, and the post-hurricane recovery efforts. Close quotes, Davis said, quote, you need a holistic investigation of what went on and what went wrong. Perhaps a commission of inquiry, close quotes. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, and thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir, thank you.
You know, there is a doctor, she's a neuroscientist that I follow. Her name is Bianca Jones Marlin. And she's doing great work in the area of epigenetics, inheritance, where we are noticing that we have generational trauma that's hanging on with us because of our descendants. We have this, and you may wonder why people are acting out the way they are because of all of this trauma that we have floating around, and no one seems to be lending a healing hand, particularly to get the two government agencies or the two parties to come together and form a commission of inquiry. They just don't cooperate that way. It's not in their scope to come together. So maybe we need to look closely at how we are carrying so much trauma inside of us.
Absolutely.
Because that war that was fought, I think it was in Iraq. Close to 1 million people got killed, but then guess what? 5 times that amount are still suffering today. You see what we're doing? We're just carrying all this pain, man.
Absolutely. And let's look at the immediate situation, which is what I think Bishop Hall is really drawing to, right? Which is the effect, the impact on the survivors, right? And so if you're on the phone with me for just a second, right? The follow-up article is law enforcement will look into Dorian deaths, right? Keishla Adley, acting press secretary, said law enforcement agencies will look into the problems that occurred during Hurricane Dorian in hopes of preventing mass deaths from reoccurring should the Bahamas experience another monster storm, acting press secretary Keishla Adley said yesterday, right? So here are the people on the ground in Abaco, and you telling them, yeah, the same police you interacting with every day, that's who gonna handle the vibe, That's who's going to deal with it. These people are living in Abaco 5 years on from Dorian. And in the beginning of the hurricane season, the shelter that has been promised from Dorian, but still isn't built yet, the truss part of the roof collapsed in the middle of construction. Let's not talk about your friend. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. But understanding how trauma operates, that you had people who had to be evacuated from domes and temporary living structures, the approach of Milton. 5 whole years later, with no definitive policy statement, no realized policy that improves the lives of those who were impacted by Dorian, who were displaced, who had to resettle temporarily, who still haven't been able to return to their land. And you don't have a shelter. You don't have a report or an inquiry into why the buildings that were designated as hurricane shelters failed or collapsed in the way that they did. But we are still in the middle of hurricane season with weather approaching, and you still have no answers. You don't have a protocol that you could present to the people that says, we have revised the criteria for hurricane shelters. So you can trust that if a storm the size or the strength of Dorian returns, you will be safe. And you all want people to go to work every day. You want them to send their children to school every day. With this on top of all of that. So we can continue to read from that article. Law enforcement will look into Dorian deaths. Adley's comment came at a press conference at the OPM in New Providence after a reporter asked for clarity on earlier comments made by PM Davis. Quote, what he meant by that is the relevant agencies, whether it's the police, defense force, or what have you, will look into areas related to the scope of their oversight to determine where the problems were and how we will deal with them. So we don't have similar recurrences at the same level should we experience something like this again, Adley said. She said she could not give more details. Quote, it is a work in progress, close quotes. Quote, I think we need an inquiry that is wider than this mandate as to what preparation was made. That's another quote, a follow-up with the same quote from the previous article by the Prime Minister. Another article to follow up before we MA say they are not involved in Dorian investigation. The Disaster Risk Management Authority, responsible for preparing the country for disasters, is not involved in what Prime Minister Philip Brave Davis referred to as administrative efforts to investigate deaths related to Hurricane Dorian, according to DRMA Managing Director Erin Sargent. He noted during an OPM press briefing that DRMA only became operational this year and did not exist during Hurricane Dorian. But isn't DRMA a combination of NEMA and like y'all melded NEMA and the disaster recovery agency? See, maybe that's why a commission of inquiry is required. I need to go into the law and find out if, like, not just why it's needed, but if it's required in the sense that that is the mechanism that you will need to invoke to be able to get access to this information in the absence of a fully functioning Freedom of Information Act. We're going to a break. When we get back from the break, I think we should touch on this story in today's Tribune. I can pull it in a second. 21-year-old stabbed to death in Grand Bahama at weekend. You guys, thanks for joining me this morning. We got about 10 minutes left on the show, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.
Guess who they gave a show to?
Oh, wait. Oh my gosh! Did you hear that? Oh god!
It's gonna be loud, it's gonna be brash, it's gonna be wild.
You ain't got the answers, man. You ain't got the answers. You ain't got the answers, Sway.
Well, maybe not that wild. The host for this show? None other than me, Jay. Savage Talks at 5:30 p.m. each and every Saturday. More hits, more music, entertainment, actors, rappers on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.
Look, this man Empire building the base.
Just sign in and have a seat, please. They'll call you in for your x-ray shortly.
That's why they call it a waiting room. You won't have that problem at Fourth Terrace Diagnostic Center or Imaging at Grosvenor. We never schedule multiple appointments, so you'll be in and out in no time. And if your initial screening reveals a concern, our radiologist can conduct an alternative screening right then and there. Call 328-8157 to schedule an appointment at Fourth Terrace Diagnostic Center or Imaging at Grosvenor today.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. Saturday, what a day. Grooving all week with you. These days are all.
Saturdays are going to be your happiest days. Our exciting new Saturday lineup premieres October 19th on Guardian Radio 96.9.
These happy days are yours and mine. These happy days are yours and mine. Happy days.
Beulah gal, can you believe this? We are now the patrol queens of the neighborhood.
We now large and in charge. So we need to check out what's going on in everybody's yard. What about that gun that we know that Junior and his homeboys just ran out? Can we report that too?
Of course we can.
But we could be in deep trouble if they find out.
We need to report what we see, Beulah. When you call Crime Stoppers, they answer your call in Miami.
So then we can report where they hiding the drugs, who shoot who part of which gang, or who disturbing the peace with the loud music and the motorcycles.
Then our neighborhood will be the best in the Bahamas, and everybody gonna want to come live here. And then our house price will go up, gal.
So what we waiting on? What's the number?
If you see something, say something. Let us all pitch in and stop the crime before it's your time. Call 328-8477 from Nassau or 242-300-8477 from the Family Islands. Or text us through the Crack Crime Bahamas app. Stop the crime before it's your time.
Ready for a show that thinks outside the box? Of course you are. From 10th year seniors, it's The Accredited, where we combine hard-hitting sports talk with top-tier pop culture takes. We're breaking down the plays, calling out the moves, and debating everything from the locker room stories to the latest TV obsessions. Premiering October 19th at 11 a.m. on Guardian Radio 96.9, step into the arena where real talk meets the culture. This is The Accredited.
You try to rest, but roll with the best. For all your printing needs, there ain't no one better, no. For posters and banners, magazines and flyers. For window decals, greeting cards and newsletters. No job too big and there's no job too small. You name it, we can print it, just give all. Let Print Masters bring your masterpiece to life.
Located at the Nassau Guardian Building, telephone 302-2361.
No matter who I marry, no matter where my wife gives birth, our children will be Bahamian, like me.
If I marry a man who's not Bahamian, I have to give birth in the Bahamas, or my children won't even be Bahamian like I am.
That don't even make sense.
That's why we had the referendum in 2016.
But the people vote no.
The government can still do something about it with ordinary legislation. And it needs to develop an action plan and timeline to hold another referendum to deal with gender inequality in the Constitution.
How we can make that happen?
Go to tiny.cc/nationality to support the campaign for equal nationality rights by Equality Bahamas.
Woo! Come on! Don't let me down now, gal! Let's go!
Welcome back to On the Clock with Erin Greene. We got a few minutes left, and I really want to go into this story. I wasn't able to piece it together until I saw today's story in the paper. 21-year-old stabbed to death in Grand Bahama at weekend. A 21-year-old Grand Bahama man became the country's latest murder victim after being fatally stabbed during a fight on the island over the weekend. Relatives said the victim, Kennedy Webb, recently appeared in a viral video of a grocery as other men threatened and insulted him. In the footage, a man said, quote, "Y'all got Vasi in the store hiding, boy. This your little brethren, boy. Look how he got his mummy, boy. He got his mummy, he got his mummy scared. And he's a whole expletive, boy. You know I don't play Vasi," close quotes. Webb's mother said in the clip, quote, "He ain't gonna get in trouble for y'all," close quotes. It is unclear when the video was recorded, as police officials were unaware of it. However, a relative confirmed Webb and his mother's presence in the footage. Police said when they responded to a disturbance at a business on Polaris Drive in Caravel Beach shortly after 2 a.m. on Sunday, they found a group of males engaged in a physical altercation, which they managed to de-escalate, leading the crowd to disperse. Soon after, police were notified that 2 men had been admitted to the hospital with multiple stab wounds. A third man was later brought in with stab wounds to his lower body and back. He was pronounced dead upon arrival with no vital signs detected. Police said they are questioning 4 men in connection to the stabbing which brought the country's murder year, according to the Tribune's records. I would like to say this. I really want somebody to help me find the clip of the local media radio host who has a television show. The clip which includes an excerpt from his show where he's talking about me, repeating the lyrics of the song Boom Bye Bye and throwing gun fingers in the air. Yeah. That individual may also be a state consultant. He may be, I don't know, maybe a violence interrupter, interceder, I don't know. The point is this. Is that we got big, grown, grayback, dirty, supposed to be retired adults walking around here carrying on like gangsters. Where you think the young people getting it from? The second thing I want to say is this. Again, people were calling the Human Rights March the Sissy March. And I say to myself, but y'all have a whole parade of cowardice. You have a whole culture of cowardice. How are you going to attack a man in front of his mother? How are you going to try to attack a man in the store in front of his mother? See, y'all, dear government, y'all modeling this thing, which y'all entrenching into this culture. is that you will break, you will ignore, you will relax the rules to make your job easier, not to actually achieve the job or reach the goal, but job easier. And what you've produced is generations of cowards. You have, from 2011, that's 13 years. For 13 years, the members of the House of Parliament have looked the Bahamian people in the face and laughed at them, indicating to them that we don't care about the rule of law. We don't care about the Constitution. We don't care about the rules, the institutions. We're going to do whatever we want. You had a whole series of administrations change the law from statutory rape to actual intercourse. You had a member of cabinet get up and say, everybody knows 7-year-olds could consent to sex, even though the court will not acknowledge the consent as valid. And y'all ain't get up and march a peace. You ain't get up and say nothing to nobody. You had another state actor suggesting, we all know that these girls are fast. They must be faster than the slow men that haven't figured out by now that you do not engage in sexual intimacy with minors, no matter how grown they look or smell. But y'all got a bunch of hooligans running around the place, and I know because I am often threatened by them. The young ones and the old set. The set with government jobs and badges, Mr. Coconut Man. When I say government job, like you're a subcontractor. The next thing I want to know is, if you knew that your child didn't have enough to leave the island, why didn't you all hog tie him? Because when the story come in the paper and it say, son who is being threatened with death refuses to stay safe, so parents hog tie him. We didn't say, yeah, well, that's what parents will do to keep their children safe. We are in the midst of a rape culture crisis. We are in the midst of a gang crisis, an administrative crisis. We're in the midst of a high-level security probe where state actors have told, we don't even know if you can get the results of the probe, but you want the people in Abaco to sit back and be comforted with the fact that the police or the defense force or somebody will investigate the deaths when they happen. We don't know. We're not quite sure. There's something seriously wrong here. Time for the adults to stand up and do what they know they ought to do when they know they ought to do it. And if you are, in your lack of self-confidence, struggling with how to make that first step of change, try this. Stop at the stop sign when you come to the stop sign because you know you're supposed to stop at the stop sign. Yeah? See, because when it comes to sex with children, nobody could see the stop sign, they don't stop. When it comes to violence and guns, everybody could see the stop sign, don't pick up the gun, they don't stop. So let's just start with this simple step. When you come to a stop sign, stop. Let's do that for a while and see what happens. But one thing you ain't gonna do, you ain't gonna bully and threaten me and get away with it. It's time for us to start protecting each other by demanding that we do our part in creating environments that are safe for everybody. You guys, you have a great day. Unfortunately, I had all this energy pent up in me for the long weekend. I had too much time to think. Congratulations to everyone that received their national honor yesterday for that you have put into building this great nation and these lives within it. Guardian Radio AM with C.A. Nuri is up next, Bahamas. So stay tuned. It's going to be another interesting and exciting conversation.
You see? Check this now. Thou shalt not shout my name out in the street. No way. If I'm walking with another lady, but wait intelligently when we get home, so we can have it out. Yes. I'm your man, and I'm a crazy man, and I detest scandal in public places. That's right. Thou shalt not drink nor smoke at any.
Unequal gender nationality law is a violation of human rights and a failure of the government to meet its obligations. In 2018, the CEDAW Committee told the Bahamas to set a clear time frame for constitutional reform, to integrate the principle of gender equality into all laws, and to amend the Bahamas Nationality Act 1973 for Bahamian women and men to transmit citizenship on an equal basis. Join Equality Bahamas in demanding action now. Visit tiny.cc/nationality for more.
Love the show? Want to give your support? Become a sponsor today. Call 302-2300 for our rates and packages. That's 302-2300. Become a sponsor on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.